It was the night of October 30th, one day before Halloween. The moon hung low behind thick clouds, casting pale streaks of light across the empty road that led to St. Mary's Church. The trees bent in the wind, whispering secrets of the dead. Somewhere far off, a wolf howled. Father Arjun de Souza walked slowly, his black cloak fluttering behind him, the crunch of dry leaves echoing under his boots. In his hand, he carried a small leather satchel, inside it, a Bible, a silver crucifix, and a vial of holy water. His superiors had warned him not to go alone, but Arjun believed faith was stronger than fear. The church stood at the top of a small hill, hidden behind wild vines and weeds that had grown unchecked for 50 years. Its tall bell tower leaned slightly, like it wanted to escape the building itself. The iron gates were rusted and cold to the touch. As Arjun pushed them open, they gave a long, painful creak, echoing through the valley like a scream. Father Arjun, murmuring to himself, "This is it, Street Mary's, the place where it all ended." He crossed himself and stepped into the courtyard. The air changed instantly, heavier, colder, as though the earth itself had stopped breathing. The smell of damp wood and old incense filled his nose. On the cracked stone steps, he noticed faint chalk markings, old Latin inscriptions drawn long ago by priests performing exorcisms. He remembered the story his mentor had told him. 50 years ago, Sister Clara, a devoted nun, had been possessed during a failed ritual. The priests tried everything, prayers, chants, relics, but nothing could save her. She vanished in a blaze that burned through the altar, leaving only ashes and screams. Since then, the church was abandoned. Arjun reached the large oak door. The paint was peeled, and the carved face of an angel at the center looked more demonic than divine. He hesitated before touching the handle, but he could already feel something watching him from inside. He took a deep breath and pushed. Kriak. The door opened into darkness. A gust of wind rushed out, carrying dust, cobwebs, and the faint scent of candle wax. Arjun lit a small candle from his satchel. The flame trembled wildly, as if afraid. The inside of St. Mary's looked frozen in time. Broken pews lay scattered, the walls were covered in strange burn marks, and a broken cross hung upside down above the altar. The silence was so deep that even the sound of Arjun's heartbeat felt too loud. He began to walk down the central aisle, whispering a prayer under his breath. "Deliver us from evil. Protect us from the forces unseen." Every few steps, the candle flickered weaker, as though something invisible was breathing on it. Then he heard it. Ding! Ding! The faint sound of a bell. Slow, deliberate. He turned sharply. There was no one there. The old bell rope still hung near the door, untouched. Yet the sound grew louder, echoing from the upper balcony. Arjun steadied his breath. "Show yourself," he said, his voice shaking slightly. The bell stopped. The silence returned, heavier this time. He took another step forward and noticed something glimmering on the floor near the altar. Bending down, he found an old rosary, half melted, the beads blackened as if burned by fire. He lifted it carefully. Suddenly, the candle blew out. Complete darkness swallowed the church. Arjun froze. He could feel his own breath clouding in the cold air. The wind outside had stopped. Not even the insects dared make a sound. Then, a whisper, voice, soft, trembling. "Forgive me, Father." The words came from behind him. He spun around, holding up the crucifix. The candle relit itself, just for a second, and in that brief flash of light, he saw a figure standing near the confessional booth. A woman, wearing a torn black habit, her face hidden beneath a white veil. Her hands were clasped in prayer, but blood dripped slowly from between her fingers. Arjun took a step back. "Who are you?" The figure lifted her head slightly. Through the veil, he saw hollow eyes, black, empty, endless. Voice, echoing, "You shouldn't have come here." Before he could respond, every candle in the church suddenly burst into flame, lighting the entire hall in a terrifying red glow. The bell above began to ring on its own, louder and faster. Arjun dropped the rosary in shock as the ground began to tremble. On the altar, The flames formed into a shape, a face, the same angel carved on the door, now twisting and melting, its eyes bleeding wax. Father Arjun fell to his knees, clutching the crucifix to his chest. Lord, protect me. The shadow of the nun moved closer, whispering the same words over and over. Forgive me, Father, forgive me. The candle's flame flickered violently, and in its glow, the nun vanished, leaving behind only the smell of burning roses and a faint echo of laughter. The exorcism hadn't begun yet, but something had already awakened. Flashback 50 years earlier, inside the same church, St. Mary's. The evening sun filters through the stained glass windows, painting the dusty air with colors of red and gold. The village of Ravensbrück was peaceful in those days. Simple people, quiet lives, and faith that filled their hearts. At the center of it all stood St. Mary's Convent, home to 6 nuns known for their kindness and service. Among them was Sister Clara, the youngest, only 23. Her eyes shone with hope, her smile could melt the coldest soul, and her devotion was pure and unwavering. Every morning, she would ring the church bell, feed the orphans, and pray for the sick. The villagers said God listened to her prayers faster than anyone else's. But what they didn't know was that evil also listens to purity, because it craves to destroy it. It began on an ordinary autumn evening. The children were carving pumpkins outside the convent for the upcoming All Hallows' Eve. Laughing, running, the joy filled the courtyard. When they finished, they placed the pumpkins near the church entrance, except one. That last pumpkin wasn't carved by any child. It was already there, sitting neatly on the church steps when Sister Clara went out to collect the children's lanterns. Its orange surface was rough and cold. The face carved into it was unlike any she had seen, its eyes narrow and cruel, and its mouth twisted into a grin filled with Latin symbols cut deep into the flesh. She looked around. No one was there. Sister Clara, softly. Who left this here? She picked it up, feeling an unnatural chill pass through her fingers. The pumpkin was heavy, much heavier than it should have been, and it throbbed, almost as if something inside it was alive. Thinking it was a prank, she carried it into the church and placed it near the altar, planning to dispose of it the next day. But that night, everything changed. Midnight, inside the chapel. The candles burn low, the wind howls outside. Sister Clara couldn't sleep. A strange voice kept whispering in her dreams, a voice soft and hollow, calling her name. When she awoke, the church bell rang once. Then silence. She lit a candle and walked to the altar, her bare feet cold on the stone floor. There, she saw the same pumpkin, but now it was different. Its carved grin seemed wider, its eyes, deeper, and then, she heard it whisper from the pumpkin, "Let me in, sister." The candle flame trembled violently. Clara froze. Her lips parted, but no words came out. She slowly bent down, staring into the hollow eyes of the pumpkin. The whisper came again, clearer this time, urgent, desperate. Whisper, "Let me in, please. You pray so much. Let me pray too." Her hand trembled as she reached for the rosary around her neck. But before she could move, the candle blew out. A deep darkness swallowed the chapel, and from within the pumpkin, black smoke began to rise, twisting, swirling, forming the faint outline of a face. It hovered before her, whispering prayers in reverse, a mockery of her faith. Sister Clara screamed, "Who are you? In the name of God, I command you." The smoke lunged forward, slamming into her chest. She stumbled back, gasping. Her body arched violently as the demon forced itself into her. Her eyes rolled white, then black. The sound of the church bell roared through the night, ringing on its own. The other nuns rushed in, terrified. Mother Superior, shouting, "Hold her down. She's possessed." They tried to restrain her, but Clara's strength was inhuman. She screamed words no one understood, ancient tongues, curses mixed with prayers. Her skin burned at the touch of holy water. "Mother Superior, call the priests." Now, 2 priests arrived before dawn. They tied Clara to the altar and began the rite of exorcism. For hours, The demon laughed through her mouth, mocking their faith, twisting holy verses into blasphemy. The walls of the church bled. The candles flickered like dying stars. And through it all, the pumpkin sat nearby, glowing faintly, its grin pulsing with every scream. Father Marcus, sweating, trembling. Spirit of darkness, begone. Release this child of God. Clara's voice, or something inside her, whispered. She is mine now, and so is this place. Suddenly, the altar caught fire. The priests tried to put it out, but the flames spread too fast. The church filled with smoke. Clara screamed one last time, a sound that split the night in half, and vanished into the inferno. When the fire died, only ashes remained. No body, no trace, only the half-burned rosary and the smell of rotten pumpkin. The next morning, the villagers found the church destroyed. From that day on, they called it the cursed house of God. No one dared step inside again. But on every Halloween night, the church bell still rang once, and sometimes, the villagers swore they could hear a woman's voice whisper from the hilltop. Let me in. Present day, Street, Mary's Church. The same night, after Father Arjan's first terrifying encounter, the storm outside had grown wilder. Rain lashed against the stained glass windows like fists of the damned, and thunder rolled across the hills in long, angry growls. Father Arjan stood frozen in the middle of the church aisle, his candle burned out, the air heavy with the scent of burnt roses and ash. His heart pounded, but his faith, the only weapon he had, held firm. He slowly bent down and picked up the rosary he had dropped earlier. Its beads were still warm, almost pulsing with life. As his fingers touched them, faint voices whispered around him, prayers, moans, and cries overlapping, too many to understand. Arjan whispered a short prayer and lit 3 new candles on the altar. Their trembling flames threw dancing shadows across the walls, shadows that moved even when he didn't. He opened his Bible. The pages fluttered wildly as if some unseen hand was turning them. They stopped at Psalm 91. You shall not fear the terror of the night. A shiver ran down his spine. He took it as a sign. Father Arjan, softly. If this is where she fell, then this is where I must stand. He placed a small silver crucifix in front of the pumpkin, the same cursed one from Sister Clara's time, still sitting in the church like it had been waiting for him all these years. Its orange skin had blackened, cracked, open in veins of rot, and from its carved eyes, dark mist began to leak out slowly. Suddenly, the church bells began to ring again, violently, without anyone pulling the rope. Dust fell from the ceiling. The candles flickered. A cold wind swept through the church, extinguishing all light. Then came the voice, distorted, whispering. You called for me, Father. Arjan's breath caught in his throat. The darkness thickened, forming a silhouette at the end of the aisle. Slowly, she stepped into the faint moonlight. Sister Clara. Her once pure habit was torn and burnt, her veil stained crimson. Her eyes glowed with a pale, sickly white light, and her lips were twisted into a faint smile that was both sad and terrifying. Father Arjan, steady but trembling. Sister Clara, your soul can still be redeemed. She tilted her head, her voice a broken echo. Sister Clara, I prayed for years, but he never came. Her hands rose slowly, and the walls began to bleed, thick red lines oozing from every cross and painting. The air turned icy. The pumpkin behind her started to glow again, brighter, redder, until it pulsed like a heart beating out of rhythm. Arjan raised the crucifix. Spirit of darkness, I command you, leave this holy ground. The nun's voice deepened, now 2 voices speaking at once, hers and something ancient beneath it. Sister Clara, possessed. She belongs to me. This place belongs to me. You can't take her. The candles reignited on their own, burning blue instead of yellow. The sound of the bell grew deafening. Father Arjan began the rite of exorcism. In nomine Patris, et Filii, et Spiritus Sancti. The demon screamed through Clara's body, her limbs twisting unnaturally, her spine bending backward until her face stared up at the ceiling. Her mouth opened wider and wider until it didn't look human anymore. From her throat came a black, smoky hand reaching toward him. Arjun threw holy water. The liquid hissed like acid as it struck the apparition. The nun shrieked, the sound piercing and inhuman. The flames of the candles flared, then went out again, total darkness. In that darkness, only her eyes glowed. Sister Clara, furious, distorted. You think your prayers can save me? Father Arjun, shouting. It's not my prayer that saves. It's her faith. The faith you destroyed. He pressed the crucifix against the pumpkin. The silver burned through its skin with a hiss. The glow inside flickered like a dying ember. Suddenly, a bright light burst from the altar, blinding and pure. The demon screamed as the pumpkin split open, spilling not seeds but ashes and fragments of a rosary. The sound of the bell stopped instantly. The light faded. The wind died. The church fell silent again. Sister Clara's body crumpled to the ground. For a moment, her eyes softened, no longer white, no longer angry, just tired and human. She whispered faintly, tears rolling down her cracked cheeks. Sister Clara, thank you, Father. Then she smiled, a peaceful smile, before her body dissolved into a gentle silver mist that drifted upward and vanished through the broken ceiling. Father Arjun collapsed to his knees, exhausted. The crucifix lay scorched, the pumpkin now lifeless. He looked around the church. The blood on the walls gone, the air calm. He thought it was over. But from deep beneath the altar, a faint heartbeat began to thump, slow, rhythmic. Thump, thump, thump. Arjun froze. His candle flickered back to life, but this time, its flame was red. He realized with dread, the curse wasn't gone. It had only changed form. The next morning, dawn. The storm has passed. Mist drifts lazily over the village of Ravensbrück. The bell of St. Mary's is silent for the first time in 50 years. The sunlight broke through the clouds, soft and golden, spilling across the ruined church. The once dark altar was calm again, the air still heavy with the scent of smoke and holy water. Father Arjun sat slumped against a pew, exhausted, his cassock torn and covered in ash. His hands trembled as he held the burnt crucifix, now blackened at the edges. Around him lay the remains of the cursed pumpkin, broken, lifeless, its insides scattered across the floor like dried blood. For the first time in hours, he could hear birds singing outside. The night's horrors already felt like a half-remembered nightmare. He whispered softly, Father Arjun, it's over, finally, she's free. He stood slowly, his body aching from the ordeal, and made his way to the altar. The Bible still lay open to Psalm 91. He kissed the page gently, then closed it. Outside, the morning fog wrapped the graveyard like a shroud. Arjun walked past the cracked gravestones until he reached the old oak tree near the hill. The ground was soft and damp from the rain. He knelt, dug a small hole, and carefully buried Sister Clara's rosary, the one he'd found within the cursed pumpkin. Father Arjun, softly, praying. May your soul rest in peace, Sister Clara. May no darkness touch you again. The wind stirred the branches overhead, as if in gentle reply. A single white feather drifted down, landing beside the grave. He took it as a sign, a final blessing. Feeling a deep peace for the first time, he turned to leave. But as he took his first step down the path, he noticed something. The soil above the buried rosary was moving. He froze. The earth bulged slightly, as though something beneath it was breathing. Father Arjun, frowning. No, it can't be. He stepped closer. The movement stopped. Silence. Only the sound of the wind. He let out a shaky breath and turned away again, and that's when he heard it. A faint whisper. Father, don't leave me. He spun around. Nothing. The grave was still. A crow cawed loudly from the church roof, startling him. He crossed himself quickly and began walking faster toward the village. As he reached the gates of St. Mary's, he looked back one last time. The sunlight was hitting the oak tree now, golden and warm. And beneath it, something small and orange was poking through the soil. A tiny pumpkin sprout. He stared at it, unable to breathe. In the span of seconds, the sprout grew, twisting, stretching, its stem thickening unnaturally fast. Leaves unfurled like fingers. The earth cracked around it. Within moments, a pumpkin the size of a skull sat where the rosary had been buried. Its surface was smooth, until faint lines began to etch themselves across it, a face forming. 2 hollow eyes. A crooked smile. Arjun whispered, "No, not again." He rushed forward, grabbing his crucifix, and held it toward the growing pumpkin. But before he could speak, the carved mouth opened, and a soft female voice echoed out, sad, trembling, almost human. Voice, "Forgive me, Father." The wind roared suddenly, tearing through the trees. The church bell, silent for hours, began to ring on its own. The sound rolled across the valley like thunder. Arjun stumbled backward as the pumpkin's grin widened, its eyes glowing faintly red. He lifted the crucifix again, shouting prayers, but his voice was drowned by the ringing bell. And then, silence. The pumpkin went dark. The bell stopped. The air calmed. Arjun dropped to his knees, panting. He stared at the ground. The pumpkin was gone. Only the rosary lay there again, perfectly clean, shining like new. Father Arjun, whispering, "What do you want from me?" No reply. Only the faint rustle of leaves. He picked up the rosary and turned toward the church. His reflection glimmered faintly in a shard of broken glass on the ground, and that's when he saw it. His eyes. They weren't brown anymore. They were ashen gray, the same color as Sister Clara's. He dropped the rosary in horror. It clattered against the stones, and for a split second, the church bell rang once more. Ding! The faint whisper returned, this time right behind his ear. Voice, soft, close. "You freed me, Father, now I'll free you." The screen would fade to black. The sound of the wind grows louder. Then a single final image. The church at dusk, its windows glowing faintly red again. And in the courtyard, where the oak tree stands, dozens of tiny pumpkins begin to sprout in the soil, all with smiling faces. Narrator, final line. Some souls never rest. They only wait for the next prayer. Thunder rumbles. Fade out. Credits roll.